The good news of Jesus Christ according to the Gospel of St. Luke in the 8th chapter. Then Jesus and his disciples arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he had not lived in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered into the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. It was a day of great transformation for this man who is not named but only identified as the one from whom the demons had been driven out. I think whenever that happens, it's an invitation for us when there is no name to step into those shoes ourselves. A chance to think about what it was like. I don't know if it's too much of a stretch for some of us to identify with just how out of control things can be. No matter how hard we might try with the struggles and challenges in this life, the little ones in our own lives, the big ones in our own lives, all those out there in the world, there's so much it seems that we cannot control, that is out of our hands. We feel like we're along for this ride. And the ride might not be all that great. For this man, he was possessed and yet dispossessed. Dispossessed of his life, dispossessed of his home, dispossessed of his ability to deal with it all. And so to the tombs he went, resided. Apparently a danger to himself and to others. They had him bound and shackled, but even these were not enough. He'd be pressed so hard as to break those things and escape out into the wilds, into the places where God's people have long undergone trials and tribulations, tests and temptations. This is where he was. This was his so-called life now. Until Jesus stepped off the boat, had left Galilee and gone outside the boundaries into this wild place of the dead, encountered this man and called out his demons. Called them out to leave him, but it wasn't quite so simple. There was a conversation yet to be had. And these demons begged him, begged Jesus to leave them alone, and begged him again to not be cast out into the abyss, but rather somewhere else. There's a lot of begging going on. And Luke is highlighting for us the relationship here. That while these demons were exercising power over this man, Jesus had greater power still. All they could do was throw themselves at his feet and beg for mercy. And Jesus gave them mercy, even these demons. Of course, it was all for naught. They transferred to the swine and down into the lake, and to their finish they went, leaving just the man and Jesus. So that when the people came and saw him, they knew who he was, but it was like a whole different person. He was sitting there calmly, clothed, talking with Jesus, back in what the text says was his right mind. He goes from possessed to free, from living among the dead to rejoining the living, rejoining the Lord of life nonetheless. Going from what was a possession, a great malady, to being healed. Then and there that day, his life was changed. He was saved. He was given new life. He went from begging Jesus to leave him alone to begging Jesus to be with him. And wouldn't we do the same after such transformation, after such salvation? It's the greatest day of this guy's life. Maybe we can identify with that as well. It's interesting, isn't it, that all this miraculous happens, and then the people are afraid of him. They just don't know what to do with this person who has exercised such power, and out of fear they send him away. This man would go with him, but he doesn't need to. He's already saved. He's already got a story to tell. So this man goes from possessed to free to wannabe disciple to one of the very first apostles, sent ones, to go and tell the story. One of the very first Christian evangelists, if you will. He's got a story to tell, and Jesus gives him directions. He says to go back home and tell everyone what God has done for you. But the man doesn't quite do that, does he? In the next line, we're told that he does go back home and he does talk to everyone, but what he does is tells everyone what Jesus has done for him. Luke is pulling together God and Jesus in a oneness here. And yet there's a specificity about it that this man picks up on and goes on and tells these people. I think there is the real miracle. Not so much the exorcism, but that this man is so changed, that his heart is so taken, that he's in his right mind so much that he goes out and tells people about this salvation in Jesus, this healing. No longer does the demon possess him and drive him out, but Jesus possesses him and sends him out. Not in some kind of evil slavery, but in the best kind of good and the best kind of freedom. I think for us, it's not so much to focus on what Jesus did here. We know that he can do these things, but I think to look at the effect that it had on the man. Maybe we are invited as individuals to step into his shoes, but I think even more so, we're invited as all of Christianity to step into his shoes, to be healed, to start all over, and to go out into the world and share the good news, to tell people what God has done for us, what Jesus has done for you. And there's no better time to start or restart than here and now. And so I'll ask you to pair up with somebody, or maybe a couple of somebodies, for just a little bit, and take this call from Jesus to tell what God has done for you, or take the cue from the man, even better still, and what has Jesus done for you. Articulate those with one another. Maybe talk with a family member for a minute or two. Maybe even better, reach out to someone who's new to you and share the gospel. It's just what we're called to do in this text, and just what we're called to do as a church. And because this man did that, here we are, still. My apologies to the introverts. I know I'm putting you in a tough position. And for the extroverts, you're welcome. Go get them. Go ahead, take a couple of minutes. Pair off family, friends with newcomers. Make sure nobody's left out. What has Jesus done for you?